That's very kind.
I want to know how long you and Berlin have been together. When did this start?
Oh man, I don't know. Maybe like 20 years.
20 years.
Been a long time.
Now, had you been off the road for a while?
Yeah, I had some health problems. I broke my leg a couple of years ago and I couldn't go out, and then just spent a week in intensive care with pneumonia, and I had a sinus operation. And the problem is, when that kind of stuff happened, I was trying to get my knee fixed. That's my main problem. I need a knee replacement. And so you have to plan ahead, for the rehab and everything. And so I didn't book any gigs. But then the knee kept getting put off, so I didn't have any gigs booked. It's just turned into, my life's a disaster.
Well, how is this part of your life getting out and playing again?
Oh, I enjoy it. I mean, this was booked before I realized I wasn't going to get my knee fixed.
Oh.
See, I'm just doing this out of the goodness of my heart.
Well, what is it? I mean, I know you're a luthier. You build guitars when your knee's not acting up.
Yeah.
You write songs.
Yeah.
Sometimes the songs are writing you. And you also perform. What floats your boat?
Painting.
Painting? That's on your latest CD. I really love the song "I Can Paint Over That."
Yeah.
So much of your work is about the craftsmanship and creative process. A Randall knife is not just a regular knife. That is a hand-tooled piece.
I like to refer to it as art rather than craftsmanship.
All right, and then of all your artistic persuasions, what do you prefer doing most right now?
Well, right now, I'm writing and playing. I enjoy building guitars and I enjoy painting, oil paint. And I, just don't have time for all of them at one time. I'll get around to it.
Did your folks encourage you to be creative?
Oh yeah, both my parents were extremely bright and were very supportive in the arts, literature.
For all you were saying about Monahans, you sure refer to it a lot. And I was thinking that's one thing Joe Ely has kind of made the point. He said that's a big canvas out there in West Texas. Nothing to get in the way of thinking.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think there's something about that. It's just, there's something that's so clean and pristine about the desert. I mean, that's the one thing I really miss about Texas, aside from that and the barbecue.
Where did you get the idea to write songs? Just to write songs?
Well, for the most part, I mean, it's stuff that happens to me, like stuff I know about, or something somebody's told me about, or something I made up. For the most part, it's personal experience. I mean, there's a certain amount of poetic and theatrical license I allow myself, but it's based mostly on truth.
I have no business saying I'm just a music critic, but you write very literate, more literate than most songwriters do.
Mm-hmm.
You ever had it in your mind to write a book?
No.
No?
No.
Why not?
Doesn't intrigue me. I mean, songwriting, you gotta write a book in 3 minutes. You know what I mean? And writing prose is a whole other discipline that I just don't think I have.
Were there any poets that influenced you coming up?
Sure. I mean, when I was a kid, we read poetry around the dining room table after dinner. We didn't have television, so we'd read out loud.
Anyone when you were young really stick out?
Oh yeah, Robert Service, Robert Frost, Rachel Lindsay, Stephen Vincent Benet.
You know, I have a feeling that there's a few folks out here tonight that aspire to be songwriters or maybe songwriters. And, you know, they've come to the mountaintop here tonight to hear how it's done. What do you tell someone, hey, I want to be a songwriter, or I'm trying to write songs. What do I do?
Listen to Dylan Thomas read his own work. Towns and I used to think we were pretty hot shit once in a while, and we'd put on Dylan Thomas reading his own work and just go, God damn. Now I see. Oh, I got it now.
When did you meet Towns? When did you two first run into each other?
Oh, I guess about 62 or 3, something like that.
Whereabouts?
Houston.
And what were the circumstances?
Towns was running around with Jerry Jeff. Jerry Jeff was traveling around the country, hitchhiking around, and he and Towns got big friends, and I ran into 2 of them playing joints in Houston.
And did they kind of jump out at you? These were not typical singer-songwriters that you'd run into?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And did you start running with them?
Well, yeah, I guess so. You could say that. I mean, Towns and I wound up being best friends, and Jerry's been a friend of mine since then. So,
what was going on in Houston at that period of time in the early mid-'60s?
Well, the big folk scare was on. And we were lucky to be exposed to really good blues players in Houston, Lightning Hopkins and Van Simpson. And you could go see them anytime you wanted to. They were always playing at a joint, you know. Then John Lomax lived there, ran the Houston Folklore Society, which would give it really good credentials. And there were, you know, 3 or 4 folk joints. And it was just kind of a fertile ground for it, as I'm sure it was in Boston and, you know, everywhere that was going on around the country, I think.
Were you working without a safety net? Did you get your electricity cut off because you hadn't paid your bill, or?
No. I had a straight job while I was singing at night.
And what was that?
I was an art director for Channel 11.
And that led to a very, to me, interesting, it doesn't make sense, but you just made it make sense talking about the folk scene getting to soak up lightning, but the international artists, the psychedelic scene.
Oh, yeah.
13 floor elevators.
Yeah, and Johnny Winter. And, yeah, it was a pretty busy little scene. No, it was a pretty fertile ground, you know. And the one thing about Houston was that you could, I mean, it was never as cool as Austin. I mean, it just wasn't, you know. It never will be, and nothing will be. I mean, the word psychedelic was coined in Austin, you know, by the 13th floor elevators. It was the first time that word was ever used with music. And, but those guys lived in Houston too, and I don't know, there's just a lot of crazy stuff going on, you know. The Rocky and Dusty Hill had a band called the Blues. Yeah,
American Blues.
American Blues. Dyed their hair blue. Oh man, you know, Rocky might have been the best white guitar player, blues player I've ever heard. You know, crazy motherfucker. And you know, Billy Gibbons had a band called Moving Sidewalks. And there was a lot of stuff going on.
I get a sense it's a different scene where you are outside of Nashville now. Is it? I mean, it's a very different world for you there.
Yeah. I mean, I live in Nashville because it's where the business is, and I can do business there better than I can do it in Texas. It's just my personal approach to it. I mean, if I ever break even, I'm moving back. But I will say this, not in defense of Nashville, but it is, there's some wonderful, wonderful players and writers there, good friends of mine who, I mean, it's a real, you know, it's like Paris in the 20s, or it was in the 70s, you know, I mean, it was on fire.
Well, when I get to watch you and Verlin up here, I feel like I'm sitting in your kitchen.
Yeah.
Or wherever you sit and pick when you pick for pleasure.
Yeah. Well, that's what it should be about, I think. You know, I mean, there's that side of Nashville which is just absolute bullshit. But on the other hand, it draws some incredible writers and players, and they all seem to be friends of mine.
You tend to attract them, I have a feeling.
Well, maybe so. Maybe I look for it.
You miss towns much?
Every day. Every day.
You've seen the Nashville music scene. What's the Texas music scene look like?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you.
What does the Texas scene look like?
You live the Nashville music scene. What's the Texas music scene look like going forward?
Seems very healthy to me. I mean, it's not a competitive sport, you know. It's not like, well, this is better than that, or, you know, he's a better songwriter than me. I think that's bullshit, you know. I think they both have their place, and they're both their own entity, and they're just as valid as anything.
As an artist who paints Texas, I don't know anyone that does it better than you. And I'm just wondering if part of the advantage is the distance, being away and missing things sometimes.
Well, that may have been true for a long time, or it probably still is, you know. Maybe the distance gives you perspective. I'm not sure about that, but.
Who are your heroes?
Mine?
Yeah.
Dylan Thomas, Towns. After that, I don't know. You know, I mean, I could, you know, name names all night, but I don't know. Heroes are hard to deal with.
Well, I think those two are probably hard to deal with, but they're pretty great heroes.
That's still shitty.
Well, listen, I'd rather hear what you do to words than just spew out words on my end. Would you do one more before we get out of here? And would you promise me this? I know you haven't booked yet. That was a booking. This booking tonight came a long time ago.
Yeah.
Would you promise to come back?
Oh, of course.
All right.
I mean, even if they have to bring me in on a stretcher, I'll come back. Yeah, I'll get one of those little rollers, you know, and just push myself along. Porgy and Bess.